Hello everybody and welcome to the extras video for how it feels to watch LazyPurple. I know I'm a little late, but we'll talk about that later. For previous videos, I just went through the Vegas file completely unscripted and with no editing, but I don't think that'll cut it this time. I've always been disappointed with those. This time, I'm putting just a bit more effort into it, as evidenced by there being a script. We've got a lot to go through, including an entirely unused 14-page script. Let's start with that. I mean, come on. I wrote 14 pages, just under double the length of the script I ended up using, and just threw it in the trash? Well, there were reasons I wasn't happy with it. The first is that I tried to make Lazy so much bigger than he was, if you can imagine that. I wanted to explain that Lazy was, at least in my eyes, sitting at the top of the community as the brightest shining example setter. To do that, I would have spent a full minute talking about the concept of community pillars, separating the SFM and Gmod communities from the TF2 YouTube community. I then would have spent 4 pages, also known as almost 10 minutes, talking about the history of TF2 YouTube and why Lazy was a super great important guy who made huge changes to how people make content and just... it was too much. I think that the effort Lazy puts into his videos is reflected in the whole community, and I do think that without him, content would be years behind where it is now. The problem is, I don't really have any hard evidence of that because it's so circumstantial, and I can't find a way to get that point across without making it sound like I'm hyping him up to be the biggest, most important guy in the history of ever. Probably because I am. I also just don't know enough about TF2 YouTube history for that. I watch a lot of TF2 YouTube, but there's still so many creators out there that I've never heard of, who either made waves before I got into watching it or under my notice. Maybe they inspired people who got bigger, and it would be a disservice not to mention those people. A video on the history of TF2 YouTube and how much Lazy truly influenced it would need so much research that it would have to be its own entire video, and that alone would probably be like 40 minutes long. Minimum. I do not feel like making that myself. So after that, I started talking about the quality of Lazy's videos. Except, you know how in my current video, most of my points were really broad, and I only used like 2 direct examples from his videos themselves? Okay, so in this script, I spent 8 entire pages breaking down everything I noticed from every video instead. I thought to myself, yeah, I don't think I've talked about how high the level of effort in his content is yet, and decided that more than half the script should be like that. And like, who's gonna watch that? Who is gonna watch 25 minutes of me describing minute details of a video series? I don't think a single person would have been able to stick through that. And sure, you can talk about why you like something, but do you need to do it for this long? At that point, it feels like every other part of the script is an afterthought, when in reality, the opposite is true. The segment was something I thought up after the script was pretty much done, but it took up so much of the video that despite me having just about every other section in the video in some form, it felt like breaking down his content was what the video was about. So I did some reflection, and I said, okay, this isn't working. I've spent a month off and on trying to write this script, and I don't think I can use just about any of it. There's too much fat everywhere. The ending is some super cheesy, who's gonna make waves next? Could it be you? line. I needed to think about what this video is really about. And I came to the realization that while I originally had wanted this video to be about why Lazy is the best, most influential creator in the community, that's not what it needed to be. This video needed to be about why I like his content. If I didn't want to come off as being super pretentious, I needed to stop trying to make this bigger than it was. This video is about how I feel about his content, and how he inspires me personally. Trying to make it into something else is dooming it to fail when a million people clown on me for being a super fan. So I started from scratch, wrote the script we have now, and it was perfect and the video came out well and everyone loved it, right? Well, not quite. Even though this is the final draft of the script, there are quite a few things that I added and removed during production of the video itself. That's why there's a couple of random paragraphs at the end. When I wanted to write a new paragraph quickly and get back to editing, I just kind of threw it at the end and put it where it needed to be in the video itself. For an example of something I cut, remember the section on Lazy's community Discord? That used to be a full minute longer, but I was having trouble finding things to use visually, and it felt like the video was making his Discord seem like it was some fairy tale utopia. So I cut around some stuff to make it sound less high praisey, and added in the line about it just being a nice community. I also cut that part down because it felt like it killed the video's pace, which I still kinda feel. I think that section is way too slow, partially due to the music choice and partially due to the subject matter. I'm definitely gonna find a different way to talk about that stuff in the future. There was also an entire minute-long section cut before that where I talked about Lazy's perceived relationship with himself. I really want to highlight that it was a perceived relationship because I do not know him. I literally talked about parasocial relationships not being cool, and to not feel like you know someone just because you watch their content, and I said I wasn't gonna dig around in his relationships or perceived personality, and then I went lol psych and did it anyway. So that section got the axe, as did a similar paragraph in the closing message. I was able to talk about all of that much more eloquently during the section on mental health anyway, so there was no real loss. Speaking of the closing message though, oh my god, is this a Frankenstein's monster of a section. Look at how many breaks there are. Basically every other sentence has been shuffled to somewhere earlier or later than it was in the script, and I wrote a few entirely new things on top of that during production and slotted them all in. It is legitimately a small miracle that this section sounds as natural as it does because I was cutting and pasting like a first grader doing clip art. The only other thing I cut was a part where I asked Lazy to do more charity events in the closing message. I came to the realization that while charity stuff is great, it's really unfair of me to ask someone to do that when I don't know their life. It's also just not my place to say stuff like that, especially when I myself haven't done any charity events. That's about everything that I cut from the script. If you want to read either of the two scripts I talked about in this video, I'll have them linked below. Just, be gentle with me, please. The stuff I cut was cut for a reason. Now I want to talk about some of the finer details of the video itself, because I put a lot of small stuff into this, and it would break my heart if it all went unnoticed. For example, I'm sure we all noticed that I used purple text for the color. Haha, talking about purple guy FNAF, purple text, very funny. But did you notice that the text only changes to purple when I start talking about Lazy, and it was a different color and font before? Oh, and speaking of the font, I didn't see anyone pick up on the fact that I used the Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door font for most of the video. I noticed that Lazy had his logo on his channel page stylized like the original Paper Mario logo, but I couldn't find the original Paper Mario font, so I used the Thousand Year Door font instead. That's also what inspired the Paper Mario 64 music from about 9:30 to 11:55 in the video. Now, let's go through this section by section. There isn't too much in specific I want to talk about in the intro, but I do want to talk about the overall approach that I had to editing it, because it's one of the sections I'm most proud of, and I'm a little salty that nobody said anything about it. I tried to give the intro a sort of ethereal feel, inspired by the music choice. I thought the Kingdom of Uriah from Xenoblade 2 had a great build-up to an emotional sounding climax, which nicely complemented the scripting I had done and my delivery of the lines. I even added a few lines into the intro just to make this specific climax hit where it needed to, because I think the song choice is absolutely perfect. Visually though, I wanted to make it look floaty, if that makes sense. I wanted absolutely no hard cuts, and I tried to use fade outs and ins sparingly. I still think I used them too much, but that's just how it ended up. The stuff on screen is pretty much always moving, even if that motion is small, and many of the edits sort of flow into each other or push each other instead of the aforementioned fades. The end goal was to make it feel as much like one big connected shot as I could at my level of skill. This probably could still have been done better, but hey, that's what experience is for, right? There are still some effects I'm super proud of though, like this zoom out and this wipe. Overall, one of the sections I think I did the best job putting together. I definitely don't think I did as good of a job in the next section. I think the editing overall is much flatter, and there are more points where I just said, fuck it, good enough. One of those points is towards the end of the section, where I say, no matter who you are or what your background is, I've yet to find somebody who can look at a LazyPurple video and not immediately respect the effort that goes into it. Originally, this section happened a few seconds later, and the song fit with it a little better. The song transitioned to a new section with the voiceover like this. Believe me, I tried. No matter who you are or what your background is. Unfortunately, I removed a few lines where I talked about me being a patron of Lazy's being a conflict of interest because it isn't, and it didn't quite line up the way I liked anymore. And I couldn't find something to say to fill that exact length of time, so I just left it. Unrelated, but I'm also kind of relieved that the Zesty joke didn't get as much backlash as I thought it would. I thought that if I said anything negative about him at all, I'd get some hate, even if it was just a silly joke about an opinion I disagreed with. Props to Zesty fans for not blasting my ass over a dumb joke, even the ones who agree with this point over mine. Also, yes, my sister's name in my phone is Rebaby. I have her full name as Rebaby Dum Dum. Now, this next section is where I realized something important about the way I was editing the video and went back to previous sections to fix it. Do you see all this? That is all text that you can't see because I brought it to 0 opacity. So originally, the section looked more like this. When I ran it by Grizzly Berry for feedback, bless his soul, he helped so much, he made me realize just how distracting this much text is. If I had any thoughts while editing to clarify a point I had made, I would put them as a sentence or two on screen. The problem was, that either leads to people pausing the video constantly to read and hear what I'm saying, or leads to people trying to read while listening to me and not fully understanding either. I realized this was a big issue with my previous video. There was way too much text on screen for most of it, and it was really hard to follow naturally. So I came to the decision to remove the text by making it invisible, and put my trust in my audience to understand what I was saying. I know that's a lot of trust to put in YouTube viewers, but hey, it's for the content. Oh yeah, small thing. Listen closely here. What blows my mind about Lazy as a... Do you hear that? Lazy as a... I have no idea what that sound is. It kinda sounds like a pen clicking. I noticed it a week or two before I put the video out and just never bothered to fix it. Also, I'm really glad that I left in the part of the video where I talk about the people who back Lazy up. This applies to talking about the Discord mods too, but I think Lazy is right when he said that adds a lot of authenticity to the video, as being made by somebody who really cares, but more on that later. I already pretty much gave my thoughts on the next section, but again, I think that this section, the one about his community, is the most phoned in part of the video. I don't know, maybe some people will like the comfy vibes, but I think it really kills the pace and the editing doesn't really help. None of the transitions I'm proud of show their face here, and the music brings the pace all the way down to the gutter. In contrast, the section on his upload schedule is my favorite part of the whole video in terms of editing. I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but that's exactly what this video is for. This part is okay, but once the Persona music starts, ooh, you know it's gonna be good. I was vibing my ass off to this song while making this section, and that clearly shows in the editing. I love this wipe, making the video in the corner turn into a full image and then having it float for a bit before flying away. I like the little pause effect, I love this medic hand wipe, and I'm super proud of this little transition here, because I don't know if you can tell, but I actually got the image onto the computer screen in SFM just to make this work that much better. You guys get the idea, I love this part. It flows super well, the song is a bop, just about nothing about it was lazily done, and every transition feels cool to me. 11 out of 10 section, and nobody commented about it, and I'm mad. For the section on mental health, there's some stuff I want to talk about a bit later on in the video, in a different section. However, I do want to talk about bringing up having Asperger's. When I was making the video, I didn't even think twice about including this part. I just thought, yeah, I have this, helps me relate, I should talk about that, and that was the end of my thought process. Then I put the video out, and somebody commented, "You're super brave for publicly saying you have autism," and I went, oh yeah, people could probably come after me for that, huh? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. In the end though, I'm glad that I did go through with it, and part of that is because in the circles that I'm in, talking about stuff like that is so normal that it didn't even cross my mind there was a reason not to put it in. There are so many people who were really touched by the mental health section, and it's definitely what most of the comments were focused on. I love that. I'm so happy that I was able to bring even a small bit of that feeling to the people who connected with it. That said, most of the SFMs in this section are really bleh. Minimal movement, basic posing, lame camera angles, it all just feels flat to me. I think this section is carried by the music and the script because the visuals sure aren't doing it for me. As for the final message, what is there to say really? I laid everything on the table and said, look, this is how I feel, and you've got a fan that's not going anywhere. So make what you want. I think that's an important message for a creator to hear. Editing-wise, well, I think it's just above the community section. You see this part at the beginning, where the medic says what I say and I freaking manually lip-synced all of it? That was originally supposed to be over the entire section, but I just could not put myself through that. That would have been absolutely awful and taken a few weeks at least. Most of the cool transitions were ones that I used earlier in the video too, and while there's a few new SFMs, most of the stuff in this section was used earlier and just recycled. You can tell I was getting towards the end and just wanted the video to be done. I'm glad the scripting resonated with Lazy when he saw it, because I don't think the visuals are quite up to par. Speaking of, so, I don't know if you guys saw, but the one and only LazyPurple reacted to my video. I remember he randomly decided to stream the day after I put the video out, and I was like, fuck, man, I'm at work, I can't watch it. So I decided, hey, I've got a second, let me check in on the stream for a 1 in a million odds that he's talking about my video. And literally right when I booted up the stream, I hear the start of my video and him going, I don't know if I should react to this, I don't want to take views from it.
I watched a whole video about reacting to YouTube channels on Twitch and how it takes views away.
And I was like, no, please, I beg you. And then I scrambled to find literally any work that I could do in the back room so that I could listen to him reacting to it, even though I couldn't be in chat. And I really wish I could have been in chat. Man, I was shaking the entire time he was reacting to my video. I genuinely think it was one of the happiest moments of my life so far. To spend 7 months of my life putting together a video about someone I greatly respect, and then that person live reacts and says, that was perfect. And that I have access to the inside of their brain.
You definitely have access to the inside of my head. We definitely share some brain cells.
It's just, there's no greater feeling. And by the way, Lazy, if you're interested in doing an interview about mental health stuff, it'd be really great. I think we have a lot to say about it. This has definitely cemented in my mind that this is what I want to do with my channel. I want to talk about other creators I like and why I like their stuff. There's only like 2 more I think I could get this level of emotion about, but there's a lot of creators I just like, who I want to talk about. I already have a pretty good idea of who the next video is going to be about, so just you wait. Back on topic though, there are a couple points Lazy raised that I want to talk about. First up is what he said about comparing my struggles to other people.
Don't ever say that! Everyone is going through, like, however much your problems are getting in your way is equivalent to how difficult they are. I won't let you get away with a direct comparison of problems.
This is something that I didn't realize until he said it, but like, of course you shouldn't. Nobody wins that game. There will always be people going through worse things than you at any given time, and it's just not helpful to think of yourself as better off than anyone else, because it makes you that much harder on yourself. You stop thinking about yourself as just another person with problems, but as someone who isn't working as hard as all the other people you see doing what you do. You wonder why you can't work like them, why you can't be as efficient, why you're not as good, and it just spirals and spirals from there. Comparing yourself to others does nobody any favors, and I kinda regret putting that line in there. In the end though, if I hadn't, I wouldn't have learned such an important, fundamental lesson, so it was probably for the best. Another thing I wanted to talk about was his idea of making mental health a perfect information game. The idea goes like this. Chess is a perfect information game. You know where every piece is and what it can do, and you can make informed decisions. Poker, on the other hand, is an imperfect information game. You don't know what anyone else has, so you have to kinda guess based on what you have and how they react, and people not talking about how their own struggles affect them turns mental health into the imperfect information game that it doesn't have to be. I love this way of thinking. People not talking about what they're going through makes it so much harder to accept when you're struggling. It makes you feel like you're alone in an ocean of normal, fully functional people who don't have the same worries as you. Little do you know, though, that everyone is like that. Everyone thinks they're alone in a sea of shit. It's not just you. I promise, your issues and worries are valid too. I'm also really happy that he took what I said in general and just flipped it on me, because he was right. I am too hard on myself, and I told myself what I was doing was sustainable even though I knew deep down it wasn't. I think the part that hit me the most is when he said to remove myself from the idea that what I'm doing is working. And as soon as I did that, I realized I really needed a break. So I took a month and a half off and played not 1, but 2 80+ hour RPGs, both of which absolutely floored me. I think this one's a little better though. Anyway, I've completely revamped my workflow, including doing a lot more on stream. While I'm definitely less efficient in terms of time spent to actual work while streaming, it's better than the alternative. It is really hard to motivate myself to work when I have to do it alone in my room, not talking to anyone so I can focus, with no music so I can edit audio for hours per day. That is just completely impossible for me to do sustainably. Even if I only work at like 25% efficiency while streaming because I'm stopping to talk to people or getting distracted, that's better than the 0% I would have had when I decided to play a game with my friends instead of working.
Holy shit! Dude, they exploded!
And finally, I'm really glad that I was able to say things that he said he needed to hear. I think the idea that you have fans that will be there pretty much no matter what you make is an important one for every creator to hear, because I think for just about every creator it's true. You can take breaks. You can rest. You don't have to kill yourself working for your audience. We respect you, and we're willing to wait. I do think it's unfortunate that I didn't manage to get him to cry during the reaction. Got Sabrina
here
though.
Comes Sabrina.
Got me with that last part, dude.
Are you
Yeah.
crying?
I totally started crying.
Oh my god, Sabrina's crying.
I also think it's unfortunate that thinking of a proper ending to this video is impossible.